Hey there! Are you ready for a wild ride through the weird and wonderful world of royal births? From bizarre rituals to strict protocols, giving birth as a royal is not for the faint of heart. In this video, we'll be exploring some of the most shocking and hilarious customs that have been practiced by royal families around the world. So get ready to learn about the royal birth traditions that will leave you scratching your head and maybe even laughing out loud. Let's dive in. Number 12. Queens had to give birth in the presence of many people. In the olden days, royal births were kind of a big deal, like a really big deal. So big, in fact, that it was apparently totally acceptable for a bunch of strangers to barge into the birthing room and watch the royal baby come into the world. Yes, you read that right. It wasn't just the midwives and doctors who got to witness the royal birth. Oh no, it was anyone and everyone who wanted to get a glimpse of the new little prince or princess. And let's just say, things could get pretty crazy. Take the case of Marie Antoinette in 1778, when the queen went into labor. An announcement was made and a crowd of 200 people rushed into the birthing chamber. Can you imagine? It was like a royal baby viewing party, except without the snacks and party favors. And to make matters worse, the crowd was so thick that some people couldn't even see what was going on and had to climb on the furniture for a better view. Talk about a breach of privacy. But seriously, can you imagine giving birth with 200 people staring at you? Talk about pressure. No wonder Marie Antoinette almost didn't make it. Thank goodness for modern medicine and some basic respect for personal boundaries. Am I right? Number 11. Men were not allowed to enter the delivery rooms. A whole crowd entered the chamber when Marie Antoinette was giving birth, but before the 18th century, childbirth was a female-exclusive affair. Even the fathers were not allowed. But this practice changed after the presence of Prince Albert at Queen Victoria's delivery. Prince Albert witnessed the birth of several of his children, an act for which Queen Victoria later wrote, "There could be no kinder, wiser, or more judicious nurse." Men became more involved in childbirth with the development of technology and medical sciences. The man midwives, also called accoucheurs, became popular. Technology was considered a man's business, so men charged higher fees, and soon the presence of accoucheurs at a child's birth became a sign of the family's wealth. But seriously, can you even imagine being a man midwife back in the day? Talk about a high-stress job. Hey, Mr. Accoucheur, can you hand me some forceps and a bottle of champagne? Oh, and try not to faint when the baby comes out. Yeah, I think I'll stick to watching from a safe distance. Number 10. From palace to nursery. One might wish of choosing the best hospital for the birth of their child, but that was not the case with royal births. Royal births took place at the palace rather than a hospital. Royal women were supposed to deliver their babies in birthing chambers that were specially designed to comfort the mother. Even Prince Charles was born in Buckingham Palace in 1948. The late Princess Diana was the first to break this custom and gave birth to her child, Prince William, in a hospital. Number 9. Breastfeeding was not permitted for mothers. When it comes to royal births, there are some traditions that are just plain bizarre. And let me tell you, the practice of hiring a wet nurse to feed the royal baby is definitely up there on the weird scale. You see, back in the day, royal mothers weren't allowed to breastfeed their own children. No. That was considered beneath them. Their job was to bear an heir, or several, and breastfeeding was seen as just a pesky little delay. So instead, they hired wet nurses to do the dirty work for them. And let me tell you, these ladies were not messing around. They were paid a hefty sum and given all sorts of gifts for their services. In fact, Anne Oxenbridge, Henry VIII's wet nurse, was paid a whopping £10 per year for her services, which is about £5,000 in today's money. Talk about a sweet gig. But why, you might ask? Would royal mothers not want to breastfeed their own babies? Well, there were a few reasons. For one, people thought that breast milk would curdle if the mothers resumed marital relations. Gross, right? But hey, at least they had an excuse to avoid the royal bedchamber. Sorry honey, I can't tonight. I don't want to give the baby curdled milk. Yeah, that'll work. Number 8. Queen should be the first to know. When a royal baby is born, it's a big deal. The town crier goes around town announcing the happy news, and there's even a typewritten statement placed in front of Buckingham Palace for all the world to see. But before any of that happens, there's one person who needs to be in the know, the Queen. That's right. Every piece of information about the new royal baby has to go through Her Majesty before it's released to the public. But here's the thing. If the baby is born before 8 a.m., the world has to wait. Why? Because the Queen must not be woken up. Yes, you read that right. If Her Majesty is sleeping, then the whole world has to hold its horses until she wakes up. Talk about royal treatment. But seriously, can you even imagine being the poor royal official who has to wake up the Queen and tell her about the new baby? Excuse me, Your Majesty, the royal baby has arrived. And I know it's really early, but could you maybe take a look at this typewritten statement? I don't want to wake you up or anything, but well, the town crier is waiting outside? Yikes! Better hope the Queen is a morning person. Number 7. Lying in was considered very serious. Royal women of the medieval period used to close themselves off from the rest of the world for some time before the delivery of their child, and this process was called lying in. The mother used to stay in the birthing chamber that was made to work as a second womb, to give the baby a peaceful entry into this world. A warm and calming environment was created in the room, and religious items were dispersed around to provide spiritual comfort. The room always stayed dim and quiet because the light was believed to harm the eyes of the baby's mother. The pregnant woman would stay in that chamber until the baby was born. Before we move ahead into the video, if you are enjoying the strange and shocking rituals behind the royal births, then be sure to subscribe and turn on post notifications to be updated on our latest videos. Number 6. Midwives had to take an oath not to steal the afterbirth. Midwives, nurses, ladies-in-waiting, or whichever women assisted in any way were called god siblings. Before the presence of men became common during childbirth, midwives handled everything. As these women were responsible for such an important task, they had to be knowledgeable and women of good character, who can be trusted with the life of a royal baby. These midwives were required to take an oath not to steal anything from the birth. They were talking about the things like the placenta or the umbilical cord. The motive behind this oath was to protect the newborn baby and the mother from witchcraft. Number 5. Weird pregnancy tests. Back in the day, figuring out if you were expecting wasn't as easy as just popping down to the pharmacy and picking up a pregnancy test. No. It was a lot more experimental. For starters, some women didn't even realize they were pregnant until they felt the baby move. Can you imagine? Wait, I'm having a baby. When did that happen? But if you were suspicious that you might be expecting, there were a few strange experiments you could try. One was to observe the color and clarity of your urine. If it was cloudy and looked like it was somewhere between white and pale yellow, then congratulations, you might be pregnant. Or you could have just drank a lot of water. Other experiments included submerging a needle in your urine to see if it rusted. What? Or mixing your urine with wine. Again, what? Yes, folks, these were actual pregnancy tests of the past. Can you even imagine trying one of these today? Honey, I'm pretty sure I'm pregnant. Let's go rust a needle in my pee and see what happens. Number 4. Labor was numbed with twilight sleep. From the beginning of the 1840s, royal women started requesting to be put under twilight sleep to reduce the labor pain of natural birth. A mixture of morphine and scopolamine was taken by royal women, which put them in a place between unconscious and conscious. Queen Victoria was not a fan of being pregnant and giving birth. She had 9 successful pregnancies, and she stated that it was burdening, painful, and full of miseries, so she was open to experimenting with drugs to reduce her pain during the process. When she took chloroform during her 8th pregnancy, she described it as soothing and delightful beyond measure. Number 3. Unsanitary birth conditions. Back in the Middle Ages, people weren't exactly known for their cleanliness. I mean, have you seen those old castles? Yuck! So it's no surprise that giving birth in those days was a bit of a dicey affair. Even the wealthiest queens had to give birth in relatively unsanitary conditions, which put both the mother and the baby at serious risk. And let me tell you, puerperal fever was a real problem. This septic infection was common during the 1500s, and it could lead to the death of both the mother and the baby. Yikes! But never fear, there was a solution: coddle. This magical drink was supposed to provide strength to mothers during birth. It was made from a combination of cream, egg, porridge, and alcohol. Yes, you read that right, alcohol. And people say the Middle Ages were dark and gloomy. But seriously, can you even imagine trying to chug down a coddle while you're in labor? Okay, honey, just take a sip of this creamy, eggy, porridgey, boozy concoction and push that baby out. It'll be a breeze. Number 2. From amulets to prayer rolls. The odd ways royal women dealt with pregnancy pain. The birth of a child is a time of bliss and celebration for the family, but this was not always the case. History reveals that the pain of childbirth was seen as an unavoidable punishment. In some Christian cultures, the pain and suffering of labor were considered a natural part of a woman's life. The severe pain was linked with Adam and Eve's fall in the Garden of Eden and represented the magnitude of original sin. Because of this religious belief, painkillers were frowned upon for every woman, regardless of their status in society. So royal women used to hold holy relics and amulets in their hands during labor, and sometimes even tucked prayer rolls into their nightclothes. This was considered a way to seek God's protection, and this method was approved by the church. Number 1. Mothers couldn't attend their own child's christening. After the process of the queen's lying in and the childbirth, she was supposed to lay low until it was appropriate for her to re-enter society. The mother had to remain in her bedchamber until she could be churched. The number of days depended on the sex of the child. She had to stay inside for 33 days if it was a boy and 66 days if it was a girl. While the mother was isolated, the child's baptism took place instantly and the baby was celebrated by the public. It was an event or celebration that the child's mother could not attend. The mother was sent gifts like cakes, candles, and sweets by the child's grandparents and other relatives. Which one do you find the most shocking ritual behind royal births? Let us know in the comment section. If you enjoyed these wild and wacky royal birth rituals, well, you're in luck, because we've got another video coming up for you right now.